Another test for the Philadelphia 76ers. Well, it has been a challenging, battle tested season all year long. Next up for this team is the Rockets, and we break everything down coming up.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You're locked on with the 76ers. What's going on already? Kayla, Santiago alongside Keith Pompey with you each and every day. So we are going to touch on the next matchup for the Philadelphia 76ers. How do we evaluate Paul George going into this point of the season, and who needs more minutes? Because we all know something's got to change at this point. So next up on the docket, it is the Rockets for the Philadelphia 76ers. That game is on Wednesday. And what it's been like all season, we can touch on Fred VanVleet getting the fine there yesterday. But this Rockets team is a team that I don't want to see the 76ers play. I've said it before. I'm not really confident in this squad until they play the Pistons, even if that, because Detroit was able to outplay them last time around. So the Houston Rockets have the edge of the Philadelphia 76ers in this game, unless we get some news about Paul George and Joel Embiid returning.
Yeah, they have the edge, but the one thing that is, which is kind of bizarre, like this game and the Detroit Piston game, the scheduling guys are on the Sixers side. The Rockets are going to be playing the second game of a back-to-back, and the same thing with the Detroit Pistons. So, hopefully for the Sixers, if you're Nick Nurse, you're hoping that maybe they can come in with a little bit of tired legs. The only problem is that the Rockets are playing really well right now. They're the third best team in the Western Conference. The West is way more competitive than the Eastern Conferences. And you talked about it, Fred. They got a couple other young wing guards. They like to get out. They like to go. I mean, they have one of the league's top young centers. So it's going to be a tough matchup for them. I mean, the only thing that I think the Sixers would love to get is they had back in the day where they played triples, not back-to-backs, but back-to-back-to-back. And maybe that might help the Sixers out a little bit, because I think that this team is young and it's still going to be a tough matchup for the Sixers.
And the Rockets, they're on the road for 2 consecutive games as well. So they take on the Timberwolves, and then they come to Philadelphia and take on the 76ers. Now, the center stands at 6'11". So you say, okay, maybe not as much of a cause for concern, but he's really been balling out so far this season, averaging 10.6 rebounds per game early on in the year. And this is something that the Philadelphia 76ers have struggled with, especially we saw in that last game against Zubac and the Clippers that, Nick Nurse starts Yabusele, probably not the best match there. Then brings in Drummond a little bit too late, but also Jalen Green. I mean, he also balls out for this team, averaging 18.7 points per game. And then VanVleet, we all saw him when he played against the Philadelphia 76ers on that Raptors team. Well, he might not be as a prolific scorer and able to hit those open shots like he once used to. He still can, but also in the assist game, he has been huge for the Rockets this season. So this is a tough test with a lot of small guards. And that's something I think that this team has struggled with throughout the season, not only points in the paint, but we saw it against the Clippers. They were a little bit longer. They were a little bit more athletic. I think more athletic and long than this Rockets team coming into Philadelphia. But still, if they have any wind left in their sails, it's going to be tough. I am excited to see, though, the battle of Jared McCain and Green out there, along with Tyrese Maxey, too. I think that could be a fun back and forth if this team can get into some type of momentum, especially with their shooting, which has been a real struggle all season long.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. The one thing, though, that I want to make sure, or I want to see if Houston, now basically they're going to be playing the second game of a back-to-back, but I want to see if they're going to follow what the Clippers did with that. Now, Fred is a 6-foot guard. He's listed as 6 foot. I think he might be a little smaller, but Jalen Green is 6'6". So I will be interested to see who they're going to put Jalen Green on to guard and defend. And we know Fred's a feisty guy who's strong. They're going to have a tough time, but I think the height advantage. I want to see how the Sixers can basically overcome that. They said they're not a small backcourt. That's what they said. But they came up small the last game that they played, against the Clippers. So I just want to see, what they can do against Jalen Green because he's 6'6", 183. So that's going to be interesting. Now, but the thing is, what we're going to talk about is their center, Surgeon.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about him is, I remember I went there. I believe it was last year. I go to Houston, and actually, it was 2 years ago, and that's when a guy really started taking off. Right, his second year, and you were like shocked at how he was able to dominate the game. Now he didn't make All Star or anything like that, but he really amazed me. And I feel like he's going to be a matchup problem for them. Like, even if Joel Embiid comes back, I always felt like this guy was going to be a matchup problem for the 76ers. Here's a guy that scored 20 or more points in 5 of the last 9 games, right? He has one double double in the last 4 games. So this guy is someone that's really dominating. For the season, he's averaging 18.3 points. He's averaging 10.6 rebounds, right? 4.7 assists. That's a pretty good stat line for a center on a guard heavy team.
And it's interesting, we've touched on this before when the conversation of why would you bring Joel Embiid against Cat back in for his first game as beginning games throughout this season after coming off an injury. Maybe now Nick Nurse and the medical staff look at this and Joel Embiid looks at this. We've talked about, kind of all the hate on social media right now on Joel Embiid, towards Joel Embiid and everything going on and the situations that have happened throughout this season. Is it smart for the Sixers team to play him in a game like this when you know you're going up against a center that has been pretty hot for the beginning part of this season and is even more of a developing player, and he's quick and he can bang down low and do all the things that he needs to? Is it smart to bring Joel Embiid back in that situation? Because you look at one of two things, right? You say, okay, well, Joel wants to go out there and show that he can dominate and show that he's still Joel Embiid. You look at the other side of the coin and say, well, Joel looked really, really bad in his first game back and did not look like himself at all. Maybe he would be a little bit more timid. So I'm going to go and say that the 76ers don't push Joel to come back in a game like this. That knee is still swelling. That's why he was out in Sunday's game as well. And I just don't think that they would essentially maybe risk that happening again and maybe push to bring him back against the Pistons if he's even ready to come back out on the floor.
Well, my thing is, I think when your team is 3-13, and whenever he's
Yeah.
able to go, he has to play.
Mm-hmm.
He does. But the thing is, when you talk to Nick Nurse on Sunday night, he said, Paul George was in the gym on Saturday. Paul George was at the game on Saturday. He said he spoke to Joel Embiid earlier on Sunday, and Joel told him over the phone that the swelling was going down a little bit. So
Okay.
to me, that's not like, maybe they could be miraculously by Wednesday that it could improve, right? But to me, that doesn't sound like a guy who's going to come back and play, right? And then, like you said, that's is a tough matchup, but it just doesn't seem like he's going to come back and play because my problem is, so let's just say the swelling goes down. Who's to say if he doesn't have a rig, if he doesn't play in the game, that he wakes up the next morning and the swelling comes back, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you know what I mean. I think that they have to be 100% careful with that one. But the fact that he wasn't there, now anything can happen over the next couple of days. But the fact that he wasn't at the gym, the fact that Nick said he told him, I think Joel may be out. I'm like, I know we still have another day.
Yeah.
The Sixers practice today. They do everything else, but at the same time, it doesn't seem kind of promising.
Doesn't seem like the matchup you want to bring him back if you're really worried just about that swelling. And we've touched on before of people saying and medics saying, well, it's really bad. You might have to shut him down for the rest of the season. We're not there yet, but at the same time, this team has already gone on record to say that we are going to prioritize keeping him healthy. And if that swelling is going up and down and it's not consistent, well, they're going to wait their long time to be able to bring him back. With that being said, we have to talk about the other injured player for the Philadelphia 76ers. How do we evaluate Paul George throughout this time that he's played so far? Is it good? Is it bad? Right now, the word I will use for it is inconsistent. That's what it's been so far for the Philadelphia 76ers and Paul George. We'll see when he's able to come back into this lineup and touch on that more in just a moment. Build is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch Build points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes or deem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bank Rate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure you use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Start earning points with your rent payments today. And with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth as well. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com. Terms do apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit robinhoodgold.com/gold. Invest involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right. So how do we evaluate Paul George at this point of time? And you can say inconsistent, and that is the word that I give for him right now. Is it too early to say, well, he's pandemic P, he's not going to be good for this team, he's injury prone, this was not the right fit? I do think it's too early to say that because this trio has played 6 minutes together. So I don't think you can necessarily make an opinion or form an analytical statement in the sense of evaluating this guy. But at the same time, the team has been inconsistent and he hasn't been much of a help either. He hasn't elevated them. Somebody like Jared McCain has been doing. Paul George just hasn't been able to do that for this team so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the thing about Paul George, when he came here, you got to admit to it. He never said he was going to be anything more than what he's being right now. I mean, he basically said he's going to come here. He's going to help Tyrese a little bit with the offense. He's going to be a guy that's going to blend in. He's going to be a guy that, basically like a third option, right? That's what he said, right? Now, again, you are right. They only played 6 minutes, 9 seconds together. It's hard to get a full assessment on it because, they need him. Like if he plays and he becomes a quality defender and he knocks down a couple shots, that's great. Now, the problem is, though, his 14.9 points is average. If he keeps that up, it's going to be one of his lowest scoring averages of his career. He's only shooting 38.3% from the field, and he's shooting, a woeful 27.8% on threes, right? So when we look at PG, Paul has only had 2 quality scoring nights. Right. He's played in 8 games. He struggled in 6 games. But again, it's kind of it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of people look at him and they say, hey, he's getting $212 million over 4 years. He needs to produce more. But the thing is, basically told us what he was going to do. Now, he's going to be basically a third option, right? He's going to help get guys involved. He's going to defend. He's going to grab rebounds. He's going to get assists. But he's not going to, take over games the way people expect him to. But I'm with you. I do think that it's still a small sample size. It's too early to give up on him. But again, I think people need to be a little realistic and realize that, it's all about Joel, Maxey, and then Paul George. That's just how it's going to be.
And I think this organization was willing to maybe overpay for somebody like a Paul George just to have that third star and really former superstar on this team. I mean, that is the biggest thing that this Philadelphia team really has lacked going into the playoffs, and having somebody that can show up. They tried it out with James Harden. It just did not work out. Now they're trying it out with Paul George. So if it wasn't Paul George, it would have been somebody else. This team wasn't going to go Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and then all the role players. They weren't going to try to build this team like we've seen the Celtics do, like we've seen the New York Knicks do as well. Honestly, there's not enough time to do that at this point when you're building around Joel Embiid. So your answer to that is, okay, maybe you pay a little bit more than you want to get somebody like a Paul George to bring in and be that opportunity for you to be able to rise where you want to be with Joel. Now, if this was Tyrese Maxey's team, I think you look at it from a completely different standpoint. But Joel doesn't have too much time left in his prime. We're already seeing that this year with the knee injury. So you bring somebody in that you think, okay, we can win now with this group, with this trio, if it works. It's too early to tell if it works. Listen, the numbers aren't great. And if you look at Paul George right now, you say, okay, well, he's got to get better. And it's good that Jared McCain is starting to line it up. And don't get me wrong, PG is getting paid a lot of money to have these numbers. I do understand that too. But at the same time, scoring option ever on this team. Not even number 2. Jared McCain is trying to fight for number 3 at this point. And Paul George, I think the biggest thing that you and I looked at throughout this preseason was, where is his place going to be on this team? We looked through it throughout the preseason and the regular season. That chemistry he just hasn't found yet, but it's more of the facilitator, PG. It's more of the guy that's saying, okay, I can show up and maybe knock down some shots here and there, but I'm not going to be the number 1 guy.
Yeah, the one thing I will say though that Paul George needs to do, though, like when they are undermanned, like we both said that he came and he's going to be more of a facilitator, defender. But the one thing that I would say that I was disappointed in was the fact that when they were in LA or when Maxey was out and all that, he had an opportunity where the team needed him to step up. They needed him to be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end, or either he just didn't do it or his shots weren't falling, right? It was like one game where the shot wasn't falling, the other game he was just not handling the ball enough. So what he has to do is, I'm not giving up on him. I understand the role he's going to take, but there's going to be certain nights where he's going to have to be more aggressive, P, and for the Sixers to have success. So that's the one thing. But you're right. It's too early to give up on this guy just yet.
How difficult, now I know PG is a vet and he's played a lot of basketball in this league, but how difficult do you think it can be to say, hey, on any given night, I may be the third option, or I have to flip the switch if Joel Embiid is out on a back-to-back, and now maybe Tyrese Maxey isn't shooting at a high clip, and now I have to be the number 1 guy. Do you think that might be a little bit tough for Paul George, who's still trying to find his place right now with this team?
It shouldn't be, because it's not like this team is everybody's gelling and he's coming in. They're all missing time. And the thing is, it comes to a point where you just gotta attack. Like, it's one of those things where, you're a 9-time All-Star. When you were with the Clippers, you became the all-time leading 3-point shooter. So it's one of those things where, you just gotta just go at it. Just do it. I mean, even if you don't shoot at a high percentage, you just have to do it, because let's face it, Joel's only played a couple of games. Tyrese was out for 6 games. I mean, it should give him an opportunity just to take over. So that's what he needs to do. But again, he's coming here as it appears he came here to become the third option. And we have to figure out how everyone is healthy, how that's going to look.
Yeah, we have a sample size of 6 minutes, people. So I know we've said that it's bad so far this season at 3-13. Well, it's really bad. I will say that. But Paul George, I still think that there is a little bit of time to figure out what he can be to this team and the role that he can play and the role that he can maybe rise up to be for the Philadelphia 76ers. Well, there's other players we have to talk about too, because who needs more minutes on this team? How can Nick Nurse switch this around a little bit? Because something's got to happen, right? I mean, these rotations, players maybe not getting as much opportunity here. Well, what do you have to lose at this point? There might be a lot to lose, but at the same time, you got to figure out something maybe a little bit different to win some games. So we're going to touch on that in just a moment. And of course, the holidays are coming up, and you have an opportunity to get some gifts for your loved ones at Skims. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show as well in the drop down menu that follows. That's the Locked On Network for Locked On 76ers. And if you're looking for the perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com. There's so many great things at Skims as well for your entire family. Make it easy. You can just go to skims.com and get everything you need to right there. Once again, make sure you select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop down menu that follows. Skims, you can get it all for the whole family this holiday season. Who needs more minutes? Well, there's a lot of things that Nick Nurse is trying out, and not a lot is working. So it's really interesting to see how his rotations are coming about. First, it was Jared McCain when he got in, was taking advantage. Now Jared McCain is getting his minutes. Keith, who on this team do you want to see maybe have a little bit more opportunity out there? We've touched on Gordon before and how that's somebody that can hit it from outside. Now this team has been awful beyond the perimeter. Maybe that's somebody that comes in and you try to get into those rotations a little bit more. But anybody else stick out to you that you want to see Nick Nurse try to get in that rotation more with this team really struggling right now?
The guy that I wanted, there's 2 guys that came to mind. One was Ricky Council. The other one was a Dembona. I would like to see a Dembona get more minutes, right?
Wow.
Ricky Council, he's I like what he does, but he's really struggling shooting the ball right now. So I can understand why he's not getting, as many minutes. Like, he had 9 points on 3 for 10 shooting, 1 for 6 from 3 in 19 minutes in the last game the 76ers played. But at Dembona, if we look at it, he's only had 2 real games with a lot of minutes, right? And I don't even consider him a lot. The one last game against the Clippers, he played 9 minutes, but most of that was like when the game was already decided. He had 2 rebounds. He didn't attempt a shot. But there was one game this season where they needed him, and he played 17 minutes. That was the loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was their second and their the second game of their first back-to-back. And Dembona had 4 points. He had 9 rebounds, right? He had 3 offensive rebounds. On those 4 points, he made 2 or 3 shots, right? He had a block, and he played 17 minutes. So that was his only extended minutes that he had all year, and he played well. And for a team that's not getting rebounds, for a team that's getting muscled down low, this is a guy that comes in and plays with a lot of energy. And I feel like you have to find a way at times to get him out there, especially when you're having a lull and you're not getting any rebounds and not being that active or aggressive. This is a guy that needs to get in there because, again, I'm only going off of the one game he played 17 minutes with, and he had 4 points and 9 rebounds and a block.
His timing has gotten so much better. And, of course, he's played some games with the Blue Coats, been assigned to Delaware as well. He's only played 2 from a sample size, averaged 15.5 points there and 8 rebounds. But one thing that it's interesting you bring that up, because somebody that really likes Adem Bona and having a chance to talk to him was Andre Drummond. He likes his game. He likes how he plays. And the thing that Drummond said was, I want to have a chance to be able to really be that guy for Adem Bona, to really train him up, to do what I need to do. And they're going back and forth in practice with each other to see who can grab the most rebounds. And Drummond said he's the best rebounder ever. Now, Drummond, not necessarily the young Drummond that we know. He can still grab some boards, but just imagine Bona with somebody to look up to like Andre, to be able to grab those boards, to get a little bit stronger underneath, what that can do for this team and what that can do for Adem. Now, we've touched on this before. I still worry a little bit about the foul trouble with Adem Bona, but his timing for blocks have gotten better throughout this season when he's been put in the game. So I love that you said it. Of course, he's played with the Delaware Blue Coats too, but he's somebody that we were able to have him on the broadcast after the Blue Coats played the same day on Sunday, and then he ended up playing in Philadelphia. And he said in the interview, hey, well, right after this, I got to go to Wells Fargo Center and be able to play a game here. So it's been really interesting to see what he can do. And a lot of people will compare him to Paul Reed. He's better than Paul Reed. His handles are better than Paul Reed. The energy is there. It's very similar, but at the same time, his timing's a little bit better, and he still is so young.
Yeah, he's also bigger, stronger than Paul Reed too. And the thing is, he's just a powerful guy in regards to the defensive thing. Now, the problem is the reason why he gets in foul trouble is because he's out there challenging every shot, right?
Yeah.
He wants to block everything, right? So he has to channel that and realize that you can't go after everything. Some things you just get in, play quality defense and get in position, get a rebound, the whole nine. But, again, I get it. He's the third string center, actually fourth string center when Joel comes back. But there have been some games where they just get destroyed on the glass. They get muscled down low. And to me, it's just a point where just throw him out there. He can do no worse than anyone else. Just put him out there and see what you can do.
On the flip side of this, is there anybody that you feel is getting too many minutes? Anybody that Nick Nurse leaves out on the floor for too long that you think might be hurting this team throughout early on in the season so far?
It's weird. Like sometimes I think that, and he'll get in and he'll get a hook, but sometimes you look at Eric Gordon. Like I feel like it's not a matter of too many minutes. I feel like it's how he's being utilized.
Yeah.
Like when you look at Eric Gordon, it's one of those things where you say, "What? Okay, he's 30, about to be 37 years old on Christmas, but what is he right now? He's a spot up shooter who can knock down shots." But I just look at it where he's not making shots, but also it's like he's playing a role like when he first came in the league. Like they want him to get out and slash, they want him to score, they want him to do stuff like that. That's not his game at this particular time. So I'm not saying that he's getting too many minutes, but I'm just saying he's not being put in the right in situations that could play to his strengths right now. So when he's out there, it looks bad.
That's something for Nick Nurse to figure out as well, and to figure out really soon. And this is no disrespect to Andre Drummond. I want to see Andre Drummond on the floor less, only because I need to see Joel Embiid out there. Like, I am tired of Andre Drummond being in there and then the backup being Yabusele and then Bona coming in. I mean, Andre Drummond is somebody that can back up Joel Embiid in terms of rim protecting. But the fact that we are seeing this constantly, it's really hurting the 76ers in terms of playing in the paint, and they can't get anything really going from that standpoint. And maybe Nick Nurse had the same thoughts, and that's why he started Yabu in the last game. But this is a matchup versus matchup problem now. And we're going to see if Drummond or Yabu gets to start if Joel does not play in this game against the Rockets coming up. And it's no disrespect to Andre. He's just not necessarily the same player that he used to be. And I don't even know, Keith, if he expected to play this many minutes early on in the season.
Nah, he didn't. He didn't. It's Well, I bet you is he never envisioned playing this many minutes as the backup five or starting at five several games. So yeah, that's the crazy thing right there.
So the 76ers still a lot to figure out. The biggest thing that we are going to follow in the next day is seeing the updates on Joel Embiid and Paul George and if they will be back for that Rockets game or when their return is estimated to be. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we will see you all next time.